It's just right. It's just, and like honestly, most of the time, the same hands are raised. I say, you're doing the wrong shit. Like if you put all your inputs and the outputs haven't changed, then you have the same condition and the same behavior, and so you have learned nothing. And so that has always just been my reframe. And so over time, if you're moving up in entrepreneurship, you're moving up in career, your behavior should change because it means you've learned.
Exposure to information isn't learning.
Great deal,
It's true. It's true. And it's the same with memory. It's literally the way that memory works. The best way to work out how the human memory system works is repeated recall, not repeated exposure. Right? You have to drag it out of memory and use it, not just see it a million times. And this is kind of the same thing with the lesson. It's you can listen to any of the podcasts that exist on the internet, or the ones that we've done, or the ones that you love, or whatever. And if you don't apply anything, it's a waste of time. And this is the best solution for this is Tim Ferriss's The Good Shit Sticks. Like, what's the thing from the podcast or the book or the audiobook or the whatever that you read or listened to that you can't stop thinking about, that you go to bed and you think about it, that you took a screenshot or a screen recording and sent it in the group chat, that you like texted your mum about it at 3 a.m. Oh, this really explains the way that I felt in school or the way that I felt when such and such broke up with me or whatever. That's the thing. That's the thing to focus on. But a lot of the time, the problem with mental masturbation is that the amount of information you can intake versus the amount of change that you can deploy is asymmetric.
Yeah, when I was getting started in my entrepreneurial journey, I would say it's like this was when I was an entrepreneur. Like I hadn't quit my job yet. I started reading all these self-help books. And I remember reading, like, it was probably like my 10th book in a row. And I realized that the words in that book contradicted like the second self-help book that one was like, it's all about goals. The other one's like, it's all about taking, steps or whatever it was, right? And I all of a sudden I was like, my life is the same. I've read all these books, but I still literally live in the exact same condo in Baltimore doing the same job. Like nothing has changed. And so I just made the commitment that whatever the next book that I was going to read, I would just not read another book until I'd done everything in that book. And that's when I quit my job and I did a whole bunch of other things. And I've actually more or less stuck with that in terms of like when I read books or even listen to podcasts, I usually do it with an intention to get something out of it. And I usually have notes up. And so my intake on information, because I get asked a lot, I'm sure you do. Like I actually don't read that much. I definitely don't read nonfiction. I read like fantasy.
Red Rising, baby.
That's right. But it's because usually I get overwhelmed with the amount of things I would have to do. And so I'm like, I don't need more information. I'm good. Like I could read a chapter and be like, all right, that's it. It'll take me 2 weeks to do this. And so then like the rest of the time is doing that. And so
how do you ensure that the things that you're reading are giving you good advice? Because if you didn't move on before you took 2 weeks to go and do the thing, but the thing was dog shit, you've spent 2 weeks going backward.
So I would make the argument that I wouldn't have gone backwards because I would have gained the experience. And so I would have more context to know what the second thing was going to be. And that's just kind of like the trial by fire, learning through iteration. And I think I tend to do more of that.
Sort of a win or learn philosophy.
Yeah. And I would say that like there are entrepreneurs who are definitely like super, super duper planners. And there are entrepreneurs who are more like, let's just move and break shit and we'll figure it out. I tend to be really this on the micro in terms of like move shit and break, like we'll figure it out as we go. And I just tend to be a planner only in the big, like very grand, like what do I really want to do in 10 years? But the majority of the time it's like, let's see. And we'll learn. I've learned so much, like so much of the content that I have comes from just fucking up in business. And people are like, this is such original content. I was like, this is just because that's what my life was. I made this mistake and it didn't work. But I said this one thing one time and then all these people bought and I was like, oh, how do I do that again? And so like it was always through iteration. And I've read all these books, but there's just knowing how, knowing that and knowing how. Like knowing that maybe this works, maybe. But once you do it, it's a different type of learning where, at least for me, it's about been that way. You could read 100 books on sales, but when you take your first cold call, all of that goes out the window because you actually have to sell.
We'll get back to talking to Alex in 1 minute, but first I need to tell you about Element. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mixed with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. Stop having coffee first thing in the morning. Your adenosine system that caffeine acts on isn't even active for the first 90 minutes of the day, but your adrenal system is, and salt impact on your adrenal system. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte formula of sodium, potassium, and magnesium that helps to regulate your appetite, curb cravings, and improve your brain health. This orange flavor is absolutely insane. It is the best way to start the day. It's a beautiful, salty, orangey drink. It's refreshing if you've been doing hot exercise, and it's just my favorite way to wake up. I've been using Element every single morning for over 3 years now, and it's still just as enjoyable as when I first used it. Right now, you can get a free sample pack of all 8 flavors with your first box by going to the link in the description below or heading to drinklmnt.com/modern wisdom. That's drinklmnt.com/modern wisdom. This is related to something I wrote last week. Don't be so worried about people who imitate your work. They only know the what, but not the why. If you stopped being creative, so would they. A photocopier isn't an artist, even if it can recreate the Mona Lisa.
I love that. Because even like you are source in that situation. And so everyone is there for like a subset of you. And they require you else. Then you can just reframe that as like, I'm exceptional. And that's not a bad thing. And I actually think that most people have, like, this might be counter to most people's beliefs, but I think most people have the potential to be exceptional. And because most people are peculiar in their own way. They just stifle that because they want to be accepted by most people, but in so doing, never accomplish what they want to do because they conform. And so, like, if there's probably a lot of things about the world or even your world around you, you're like, this never made sense to me. But then you do it anyways. And I think that a lot of innovation and a lot of what makes people exceptional is thinking that thought or seeing that thing and being like, I don't think I'm going to follow that rule anymore. Like, why do I need to shower twice a day? Like, I don't know. Like, why do I need to wear different clothing? Like, there's just a lot of these social norms that people, usually pass down to us or they're, bred into us in high school and college and things like that. But it's like you see a guy who, wears a cowboy hat and dresses a certain way, and he basically wants to say, I am this archetype of person. But if cowboy boots are as comfortable for you as New Balances are, and you know that you still wear cowboy boots, I would call you a fraud. Because like that is like it's like a micro rebellion against yourself. It's like there is, and like I look at old people a lot because usually they don't give a shit anymore. They've just like given up. And there was a survey that they did where the number one reason that old people like don't have as much time when they're happier is they cited they literally don't have time for it. Like literally, they don't have time for it. And I found that so interesting. I was like, well, if I'm going to eventually be that way when I'm 80, I might as well just start being that way now. And so they usually wear like really comfortable footwear, and like they keep their surroundings like whatever weird peculiarities they have, they just accept them. And so I think a lot of like if life is a long journey of self-acceptance, I think the earlier you can accept your own peculiarities as just part of you, rather than trying to justify them or mold to the archetype that you think is acceptable within your social circle. At least for me, like there's this period of discomfort when you change anything because everyone around you wants you to fit within the label that they are comfortable with.
They also have the anchor of what you were before.
Yeah, exactly. And so they try and like people don't like that. So they're like, no, I like you in this box. So just say it. I know you're having a little thing right now. Don't worry, just and they just want to shove you back into it. And there's a lot of uncomfortable conversations that you have to have where it becomes really socially awkward. And so, like, I said one the other day about, like, going home for the holidays, and the reason I don't like doing it is because often I have to confront a lot of people that I haven't seen in a long time, and they'll speak to me in a way that I don't like. And before that, I would roll it off, like, whatever, no big deal, but I don't accept that.
Didn't you torpedo a family holiday a couple of years ago?
Many.
Yeah, I mean, but that's when your friends start to say you've changed, it's because they don't know how to say you've grown.
And because they see so few people who have, so it makes sense that they don't have that. So I see that as a lack of skill, not malice. Like, it's not that they're bad people. They just don't even know it because so few people do change. Yeah. So few people do grow.
Have you seen this image? It's a person whose heart and head are flowers. It's kind of a 2D drawing. Right. It's a bit of a sketch.
Okay.
And they say this person with the kind of smaller flower head and heart says you've changed,
Mhm.
and the person on the other side with this huge blooming thing says, I should hope so.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but I see it in my head.
Yeah, it's brilliant. One of my friends, George Mack, told me this 5 years ago, I think. I'm astounded by how many people want to be spectacular in life, but also want to be normal. By being normal, you are, by definition, aiming for average. Normal people get normal results. Exceptional people get exceptional results. You literally can't do what everyone else does and expect to not get what everyone else has got. By doing what everyone else does, you guarantee average results.
Okay, so this comes down to everything that like business. I mean, obviously, I come from the business and investing world. Like, if everyone is jumping onto crypto, like by the time you have all the information to make a perfect decision, it's too late. And by the time you have consensus where everyone's like, that's a good investment, it probably isn't because it's already been mispriced, because it's already inflated and it's above what its intrinsic value is. And so like good investors fundamentally can think for themselves. And it's such an easy thing to say and such a hard thing to do. And so it's being able to say, if I shut myself in a room and I had to come up with a value for something and just use my own mind to come up with what I think this is worth, it's that answer that you get in a room, in isolation, with no internet connection, that you believe in that number more than every single other person's. And most people can't do that. But like that ability. And then what happens though is if you really have to believe in that rather than everyone else's, you double check your fucking math. Because if it is different than everyone else's, you have the option. That is what opportunity
advantage.
like. Right. And it's like, and you have the potential to make a certain amount of money. Or lose a ton of money because you didn't check your math. And so the more I've been reinforced for thinking independently, and in the beginning it's on small things, and then you just continue to reinforce that cycle of,